I've built a web app with Claude code that I am finally ready to deploy to production. Today I'm going to use Vercel and GitHub to bring my production project to life. It's going to live on the internet. Do I know what I'm doing? Of course not, but Claude code does. Here's my app as it stands now. I call it my bookmarker website because it's kind of a bookmark for me to keep track of books that I want to read. I can search for a book, and it reaches out to Google API, finds the book and the details, and then I can keep track of where it was recommended, who recommended it to me, and add it to my collection. Once I've read it, I can go back in and edit it, and I can update it to say I have finished it. And then I can add a ton of information. How much I liked it, the story quality, the writing style, the pacing, various aspects of violence or romance or intensity. I can add free-form thoughts, a bunch of tags, and any final thoughts I have about the book. I know that seems a little bit like overkill. I'm not interested in keeping that much detail about books that I've read. But the reason I do want this is because I realized I could add an AI recommendation engine to my website. And the more details I had in here about books that I've liked or didn't like and why I liked them or why I didn't like them, the better the recommendations could become. So I built Margaret the librarian. She'll take the information about the books that I've read and what I did or didn't like about them and use it to recommend new books to me. And this is using Claude Sonnet to take into account the information that's stored in the database about the books that I've read and gives me some suggestions about what else I might like, as well as reasons I might like them. It won the Booker Prize. It's unlike anything I've read in years. Speculative fiction, dark comedy. That sounds right up my alley. And then down here is a summarization of the recommendations. This is something I am now excited to use now that I have my web app in a place where I kind of want it and actually want to use it. It would be handy if I wasn't just on a development environment. If I could just whip out my phone no matter where I'm at, open my own web app and enter in data or ask for a recommendation, that would be pretty cool. I've never done that before. So I've spent the last couple days really fixing all the little bugs and adding new features to make it ready for deployment. I followed the steps in my previous video about making sure that it's got end-to-end testing using Jest and Playwright, and everything is checked into Git and pushed to GitHub. And it is ready to be deployed to the real live internet. I asked Claude what the best way to handle deployment was. There are several different options I could use to deploy. I know Vercel is one of them. Netlify is another one that has been recommended to me, but I kind of asked Claude, where can I deploy it? And Claude came back to me and said, given what I know about your project, it's got a database behind it, you want some password protection, and it's running Next.js, go ahead and use Vercel. That's definitely a good option. Now, it is important to note, I'm not making this public and I'm not making it multi-account because it's really set up for me. It's got a database behind it holding the books that I'm interested in and the books that I've read. And because it does have an API to Claude Code in it with the AI recommendation engine, I'm not opening it up to the public because every time I ask for a recommendation, it is going to Claude with my API key, and it does cost a tiny little bit of money. Now, it's not a whole lot of money. I think I've used maybe 4 cents worth in the testing of this, but I just can't open it up to the public. I'm really only hosting this for myself. So, given all of that, I asked Claude, what do I need to do next? And it has given me this very helpful little checklist. Go to Vercel, import project, connect your GitHub account. Vercel will auto-detect Next.js, click deploy, add the environment variables, and then go to deployments, wait 2 or 3 minutes for the build to complete, and test my app. It seems slightly unbelievable that that could be true and that I really could be up and running in just a few minutes. Is that right? Let's find out. So I went and created an account at vercel.com, and I am ready to add a new project. And the first step is to import a Git repository. Add a GitHub account. I want only select repositories. And I created a bookmarker production project in GitHub so I would know for sure this is the one I want. And I, of course, want to give it kind of access to everything. All right, so I'm logged in, or at least I've made that connection from GitHub to Vercel. So this is all very new to me, and I am literally just following the steps that Claude has given me, and I have been asking Claude AI questions along the way when I don't understand a step or I'm a little worried about what it might mean. All right, click deploy, don't configure anything yet. I'm gonna say import, and Claude says hit deploy. Building logs. Let's see, what else? Don't configure anything, add environment variables. So this is where Vercel is going to use my variables to figure out where to go for various data. Like, I'm going to set up a username and a password so I can get into my web app. I am going to tell it where my database lives so it can find the data. I am going to tell it my API key to use when it needs to go to Claude for book recommendations. These are all the environment variables that I'm going to be telling Vercel to use in order to make my web app work. I did ask Claude, I just was curious about the security, and it sounds like Vercel is storing it very securely, so that was helpful to me to go ask Claude to explain it just as a second level of comfort. I do assume these things are taken care of, but it's not always safe to assume everything is taken care of. It never hurts to ask questions, especially when we've got something like Claude or ChatGPT to ask the world of questions to. All right, failed to compile. Well, need to disable some ESLint rules. Perfect. Copy and paste those problems in and see what Claude has to say. There's a lint error in the chat route. Great. All right, let's commit and push the fix. All right, tests passed. All right, so we have some more problems. So before I got ready to deploy, I did what I could. I ran all the tests, but it is pretty normal to expect that there would be some issues that are specific to a production environment. All right, so more problems. Copy, paste. I am just going on faith. If I just keep cutting and pasting and cutting and pasting between Vercel and Claude, they will work this out. All right, it was committed and pushed. So let's try that again. Success. All right, third time was the charm, and I've got a new project. All right, I'm so excited about that. All right, what do I do next? Continue to dashboard. I now do not know where to add my environment variables. Let's ask Claude. All right, the deployment was successful, but I do not know where to add my environment variables now on Vercel. Can you help? Go to your project dashboard. Navigate to settings. Right there. Environment variables. All right, there are a bunch of environmental variables that I need to go grab and put in, but they are not for public consumption, so I will be back in a bit. All right, so I have added, I believe, all my environment variables, and I need to hit the redeploy button. Once you add the environment variables and redeploy, your app will be fully functional with Margaret. All right, it is ready. All right, so it is ready and it has my books in here, and let's test Margaret real quick. I am feeling excited because I just got a big task completed. What book do you have to recommend that is just fun and sort of celebratory? Because this is a big deal for me. I've got something in production. Oh my dear, congratulations on finishing that big task. Something fun and celebratory. Beach read. It's about two rival writers who challenge each other to write outside their comfort zones while spending a summer at the beach. Something I want to read. So this points to a little problem I never got around to fixing. I would love to be able to go into this card right here and click add to my collection. I can't do that. That's a problem. But, you know, since I'm here, beach read? Yes, please. Type of source recommended this? Well, it was a librarian named Margaret. All right, 100% success. Yes. All right, so let's take a quick minute here to go over one of the reasons to have code into GitHub is not just so that your code is backed up and you can always go change it and roll back changes. It's because Vercel will detect when a change is made to your repo in GitHub and it will rebuild and redeploy live. You don't have to go do anything. You don't have to go back in and do all those steps that I just did and say, hey, I made some changes, go redeploy that to production. It should be automatic, but I do want to test that. So Remember that little problem we had where I couldn't add the card that Margaret the librarian recommended? Let's see if we can fix that. That went so much quicker than I expected. That really was easy to deploy on Vercel once I figured out where everything was, where to add the environment variables, and where to find the environmental variables. But I was always able to either ask Claude Code where to look, or I found them exactly where it said they would be. So now we are back in a development environment. But now I need to go back into my code and fix a little problem. When Margaret gives me book recommendations, it creates little cards for the books. I would like to be able to click on that card and directly add that book to my library right from there, rather than needing to cut and paste the book title recommendation and go back into my browse section and find the book and add it from there. Can you add some add functionality directly into Margaret's recommendations? That's a fantastic enhancement, Claude says. All right, so it says my enhancement is automatically deploying to production. That would be amazing. I didn't have to do anything. Let's find out. I don't know how long it takes to redeploy. So I'm in the mood for a smart mystery. Do you have any recommendations? If you're drawn to something more atmospheric, you simply must try the sweetness at the bottom of the pie. Let's see. Yes. Success. I couldn't be happier. Full success. I now have a real live working web app in production. I can get there from any browser, anywhere. I don't have to make sure that my development server is up and running. It's just live. And anytime I make a change, it will roll itself up through GitHub to Vercel to my real live production website, assuming, of course, that I haven't broken something. I will definitely need to keep an eye on those log files, but since it's just me making the changes, that should be pretty easy to do. This is the culmination of a series of videos I have created. If you're interested in watching the earlier steps, I will link to that playlist in the description below. But I really want to reiterate that if I can do this, you can definitely do this. All I did was I had an idea and the $20 a month Claude subscription, and I just told Claude what it was I wanted to do and then let it get to work. I let it explain things to me. Anytime I had questions or was not sure about a step, I would ask either Claude or ChatGPT what exactly it meant to make it less scary, because there were a lot of steps I don't understand. But Claude Code was able to do all of the coding, of course, but also explain things in a way that made me feel comfortable enough to use it. I can't tell you how amazing that is. Go grab Claude, go grab ChatGPT, go grab Gemini, Qwen. There's so many AI coding apps now. You should definitely be able to get something up and running, even if it's just in a development environment, because really that would have been enough for me. I just really did want to go that extra step and see what it would take to get something running in production. Up until about a month ago, I didn't know I could get this deployed for free. I assumed I had to go buy some sort of server hosting space and buy a domain name or something. I really didn't understand how all of that worked. I just have this tiny little app that is now doing exactly what I want it to do, and I just couldn't be more pleased. So that's it for today, and that wraps up this particular project, but this is definitely not the last project I'm going to work on. So if you're interested in seeing what I come up with next, hit that subscribe button. If you enjoyed this, hit that like button. It really does help, and I really appreciate all of the new subscribers that I've gotten recently on this channel. It really does make a difference, and I really do appreciate all of the comments. I do read them all. I don't always have time to respond to them immediately, but I do try to get back to them as soon as I can. So I just really want to encourage everybody, if you're at all interested, give this a shot. Honestly, if I did it, you can do it. All right, that is it for today. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.